and a very warm welcome to Digital Pioneers, an ETStudios initiative powered by Tata Communications. I'm your host, Devina Lasson. Now, we are thrilled to bring you this very special series, Thriving in a Hyper-Connected Ecosystem, that deep dives into how hyper-connected enterprise is the future of business in India and globally. This is the second part where we continue to discover what connecting and collaborating means today in a digital business environment. We will look at how different groups of companies are coming together to build new critical infrastructure for the 21st century and optimize the existing ones with the help of emerging technologies. Right, without any further ado, we have joining us today two very esteemed panelists to give us their insights into hyper-connectedness and much more. First up, we have Shashank Agarwal, CTO, HDFC Credila. Welcome, Shashank.
Thank you, Devina.
Thank you. And Ashish Karukaran, Vice President, Financial Services Cloud, Tata Communications. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming here today. We're going to have a very interesting conversation on hyper-connectedness, but also really deep dive into what's happening in the NBFC sector, what impact tech plays in all of this, and the future outlook. So Shashank, to start with, I'd like to ask you, it's undeniable that the NBFC sector has seen vast expansion and growth in the last few years, especially in the loan space, in the educational loan space. So to what extent would you say this expansion and growth is attributed to technology and the tech strategies that you've been implementing at HDFC?
It's a very interesting question, and I'll briefly mention that it's been around 3 years for me at HDFC Credila, and lending is a very interesting domain, and I've been fortunate enough to see the various facets of lending and where all we can leverage technology. In my opinion, especially given the world that we are moving in, right, and especially for us, our primary customers are millennials, students community, right, who are well versed in digital experience. They have very high demand. It is important that we really come up to expectation of the experience that they're used to of it. And those are the folks who are used to of apps, Amazon, Flipkart, that kind of experience, right? Now we cannot be below that, right? That's the benchmark. And in my opinion, customer delight is a very important aspect of how we are seeing digital. Now, along with that, as we are moving towards growth, it is important that we are able to scale without escalating cost in a linear fashion. Otherwise, we will not be able to survive. And people who are better, they would definitely have an edge. Third is, how do we position ourselves for growth, right? How do we put ourselves on a pedestal to enable exponential growth, be it in education loan or be it in any sort of domain that individual companies are. So in my opinion, it is absolutely necessary and we cannot survive without that.
Well, thank you for laying that foundation. Can you tell us a bit about some of the unique and interesting tech solutions that you've been implementing at HDFC Credila?
Yes. So our digital strategy sort of revolves around 3 pillars. As I mentioned, customer delight, operating leverage, and the growth. Now, one of the important aspects is how do we give the right experience to customers when they are onboarded. Yes. How do we make that frictionless? We don't, in the old days, they used to fill, long paper-based application form. I'm sure, I think we all would have filled while opening our bank accounts. But in today's world, it is not possible. There are 2 reasons. One is, of course, the convoluted application form itself. Second is reach, right? If we are able to reach out to customers digitally, we will be able to increase our distribution reach. So that's one area we have focused on. Other areas is we have used OCR technologies to extract information from various documents that customers upload, which is required as part of the application process. In old days, say for example, people would read from bank statements and then capture the data points. Now we can use OCR to just extract it systematically. Now, just to give you a sense, earlier it used to take maybe 15 to 20 minutes to do that job by a human. Now it takes maybe few seconds.
Wow.
Right? So that, and this is just one example, there are many other, but put together, the digital really positions us to scale much faster. And also, by doing that, we are able to process the application much faster, right? That's a key aspect of the customer experience, because having been a customer myself of other loan products, there's a lot of nervousness when you go through that. You are not sure whether it'll be sanctioned. You are not sure whether the amount that you need will be sanctioned, at what rate. So there's a lot of nervousness. If you can reduce the whole window, that will just make customers very happy.
Sure. Well, that's really interesting. Ashish, let's bring you in on this, because Shashank has just told us of all the tech innovation that they're implementing. But at the same time, it also appears as if the NBFC sector is slightly slower to adopt cloud. So I'd like to know your point of view on this, reasons why this adoption is taking time, and what do you see as the way forward?
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. So, I have been interacting with a lot of industry leaders like Shashank or somebody like in the various sectors of NBFC segment. And also, I've been we have been done some market analysis. So, based upon that, what we have observed is that, see, as an industry, they understand that they have to adapt cloud, and it's also become a hygiene factor.
Yes.
And so today or tomorrow, they need to take that particular path as well. But there are a few challenges they are facing. So if you look at currently, predominantly the cloud adoption happens on all the customer-facing application, and maybe for a customer experience, what he was talking about it. So where the customer journey can be differentiated, and that also, but it's unfortunately it is predominantly for the new age kind of players or somebody who is adapting at a technology at a larger space. But a larger portion of the NBFCs are still not able to kind of adapt to that, and that is also kind of creating an ecosystem. There is an imbalance that is getting created. So some of the facts, which is something observed, is that the industry is pretty old, and so there has been legacy systems running in most of these organizations.
Yes.
And there has been significant increase in the business volume. So typically, like when they initially implemented this particular application stack or the legacy applications, they never expected that so the technology is going to be a differentiator, or maybe the level of the adoption which is currently happening, it's going to be will be that. So the technology was predominantly a record-keeping system, but over the period of time, it has actually grown exponentially. So now it's a brownfield, and to change that particular technology, it's becoming really a Herculean task, where in a brownfield environment. And at the same time, the business is continuously demanding more and more functionalities, and the new line of business is getting added. So this is creating an ecosystem stress on the entire industry. So what happens is that the whole of the industry, predominantly the CTOs, are sinking in their work and actually running this particular stack, because managing a legacy stack is a really tough task. Because I, being a CDO before joining Tata Communication, I know the challenges actually to run the legacy assets. So then, yes, there is an intent to kind of move to latest technology, cloud as a foundation for that. But unfortunately, they are struggling on that particular thing. In addition to that, there are a couple of things Many times the business is trying to find out the appropriate business case, the ROI or the break even for that. So because the right kind of use cases are actually like not able to kind of be identified. So many times the projected costs are actually like quite exorbitant, but they cannot put a number in terms of what's the real value of the cloud is bringing into table rather than an infrastructure refresh on that. Second is maybe the skill level, because the traditional people are actually always trained on the traditional stack.
Yes.
So the modern stack is something like there is always a challenge, and there is an acute shortage of skill happening in the industry, specifically like cloud related technologies. And also having a partner who has a larger set of capabilities. So where they take the responsibility, saying that actually I'll work along with you and I'll take the larger responsibility for your journey. So this is also not happening. So this is something like preventing these people to kind of, or maybe the industry to kind of adapt to the cloud assets. So that's the reason why actually like there is a slow pace in the adoption.
Wow. Thank you for that insight. Shashank, that's a very interesting point Ashish raises. Also talking about the legacy issues that often do come in the NBFC sector. One of them being having a very high level of NPA. So what would you say can be done to enhance the quality of assets in NBFCs?
So, I mean, if I just talk about the industry as a whole and not just NBFCs, I mean, we can also talk about banking, because banks also do a lot of lending, right? So there are two logical approaches, how we can use technology, right? One is giving loan to the right customer, right? How do you assess that? Second is, once you have given a loan to a customer, how do you preempt any challenges with customer? How do you make it more convenient for customer to repay, right? Many times, it's not that people don't pay because there is no intent. It's just that we have not made it easier for them, right? So first thing is, of course, there's been evolution in terms of how we assess credit risk. How do we assess individuals' capability, and just not traditional way where we look at their CIBIL reports or some of the financial data points, but we look at alternate data points also, right? And with the explosion of cloud and a lot of fintech players who are leveraging cloud have made that much easier for us, right? So for example, now if I have to validate that somebody, if they've given their corporate email ID, whether that's right or not, I can do that at real time. Right? Now that just gives me a confidence when somebody is saying that they're working for company XYZ, that's indeed true.
Yes.
Right? That's just one example. Similarly, how do we ensure that we are able to predict behavior of customers better? Right? So AI and ML models are very effective in doing that, and because what NBFCs or banks have is a rich data, right, which fintechs do not have, right? So we can mine the data, we can get the insights, we can find trends, and then use that as a leverage to assess our future customers, right? And I'll probably just add one point to what Ashish mentioned about why NBFCs are not moving, right? I'll probably give a very simple example in a layman term, right? You think of a house which you are building from grounds up, right? So it's very easy because there is a standard process of doing the foundation, raising the wall, beams, etc. But think of a big house, huge house, which you need to move from one place to another place, right? You need very different skills to do that. You need to ensure nothing breaks, because in new house, you can afford if something breaks because you can fix it. Nobody's living there, right? So that's the challenge, maybe in a very simple terms. But one more point which comes to my mind is the intent, right? Do you believe in the cloud, Right? I was co-founder and CTO of my own fintech venture before taking up this role. Right? So I was quite conversant, and maybe I'm quite confident of the abilities of the cloud. Right? That definitely has helped us adopt cloud much faster, maybe compared to our peer organizations. Yeah.
So, well, needless to say, that sort of leads to my next question. But your point of view on the adoption of cloud really enhancing your competitive advantage as well in the market. What are your views on this?
Right. So I think with time, as I started my journey as a technologist, I've been pretty hands-on, maybe until 3-4 years back, right? So I always sort of look at from engineering mindset, and I personally feel over time, right, in last 20 plus years, technology has become a commodity, right? It is not difficult to build once you know what you want to build, right? So what you need to focus on as a organization, or what we should focus on, is to understand our needs. And when I say our needs, of course, they invariably mean our customer needs, right? And we then have to work backwards to figure it out. What do we need to do? What is our current state? What should be the future state? Identify gaps. And I can tell you, I'm sure Ramesh would agree with that. Cloud definitely has come up with a lot of innovative solutions which will make it much faster for you to, I think, follow the journey.
Yeah, absolutely, Ashish. Let's bring you in on this. So, your perspective on how cloud can do exactly that, accelerate the journey, increase competitive advantage, and just overall bring modernization to NBFC sector.
Yes. I won't say that the cloud is something it is transforming the entire thing, but cloud is going to provide the foundation for your digital transformation journey. So it's more of like the question of one side you're asking about whether Credila got the competitive advantage in terms of the cloud. But the question here now is that whether an organization now can be having a disadvantage of not having access to the cloud, because the cloud has, it's a democratization of a technology. Somebody who is going to business now has an access to the technologies available for a multi-billion-dollar companies, and the similar based upon the kind of pay as you consume model. It's the same capability you are getting. That was not the case 10 years back. So you don't have that particular, the larger ones had that particular competitive advantage. That's no more there. So it's a question of the existing players to kind of think in terms of, okay, can I be in a disadvantageous position? Can I be less competitive in terms of my capability to kind of be ahead of the business as such? So in today's world, the enterprise compute is not confined into your data center, because it's across. It's actually like your API ecosystem has changed the entire landscape. You cannot say that I am still running on a monolithic architecture. I don't have a microservices, so that I cannot expand on my capability. Yeah. I don't have an API ecosystem available. I'll take 2 months to build an API. I cannot do that in the current context. I need to have an API developer portal. I cannot say that actually like, okay, I don't have that particular thing when the industry is having an easy access to that particular thing. So I cannot say that I cannot use the data science capability for a better credit risk monitoring, because alternative credit information bureaus are there. Your internal capabilities need to be adequately enough to kind of better risk assessment. Also, access to the customer. Your digital marketing has gone significantly high. So you need to have your capability internally built, or maybe access to the technology is required, so that I can be along with the competition. You can innovate in a different way altogether with the base foundation available, but you cannot be in a disadvantageous position. So the cloud provides that particular foundation for the industry. So the question is actually like, can you be late, or can you be ahead of the game, or can you be along with the journey as is? So that's something like the thought I need to put over here.
think another important reason why that process has been slow is information security risk. Clouds have evolved now; they definitely have much stronger security posture, and especially for banks and NBFCs who live in such a highly regulated environment, it is paramount that we have strong controls. We can't afford a data breach. Right? I think we all must have heard recent news of another peer NBFC going through these challenges. And the other key factor is the data ownership, right? Because if you have your data in cloud, how will you ensure that only you have access, right? And then you have a dependency on external world, and that's why large institutions are also going for hybrid cloud.
I agree with that particular thing. To add a different point altogether for that, an ability for an organization to invest on information security with a kind of capability internally for their own data center is sometimes restricted, right? So again, actually, you have a huge capex involved in that particular thing. But at the same time, the enterprise class security, the best practices in the industry, that is also which is fast paced. What is actually it is how fast you will be respond to kind of threat is more important. So the cloud players, which is more of like ahead of the game on that particular thing, have an shared infrastructure, shared services access available, can have that particular differentiation. Yes, there is always a challenge in terms of always concern in terms of actually like where your data resides, who has an access to that, and the attackers are actually becoming more and more intelligent, and they are advanced on that. So that is something like we need to live with. Having the right kind of partners and everything, probably like it's a certain level actually you'll be able to kind of.
No, I agree with him completely. Internally, I think individual organizations do not have the capability, resources to innovate on information securities like Amazon, AWS would do, or say Google would do. So I fully align with those thoughts. And as I mentioned, clouds have evolved over time. Right now, they have addressed many of those concerns, and that's the reason you would see that a lot of large financial institutions are moving to cloud, right? They're putting sincere effort to move to cloud.
So a lot of the modernization and digitization really depends on who your partner is and finding the right partners who you can trust. So Ashish, given this vast conversation we're having here on cloud, I'd love to get your perspective of how, in a nutshell, you would say that cloud and other tech solutions can really loan to the modernization process of NBFC sector.
Okay. Interesting perspective. So I won't say that cloud is going to kind of change or maybe like directly providing a competitive advantage on that. But it is going to give a foundation for your digital transformation journey. So it's a question of more of like whether your organization is going to be digitally disadvantaged, or maybe like are you ahead of the game or are you along with the game? Because in the current context, so you don't have an option to be like less competitive compared to the competition assets, right? So everybody has an access to the technology. So the cloud, the technology is now not getting differentiated between what is available for a multi-billion company to somebody like a 100 million company assets, because there is a democratization of technology has happened over the period of time. So whether you are having the capability to kind of consume that particular technological changes, so that's something like the cloud is going to enable you. So it's more of like, can I continue to be in a traditional legacy application, monolithic application, where I don't have an access to microservices? For a customer experience changes and everything, I need to wait for 4 or 5 months for changes to get implemented, rather than actually have a containerized application where I can keep on actually like pushing for the new changes as such. In the similar way, the API ecosystem is kind of completely changed the industry landscape. Your compute is not restricted only into your data center. Now it's across the industry assets, because everybody is providing you to the kind of landscape of technology where you are trying and consuming the kind of services available across the industry assets. So I cannot be kind of somebody saying that I'll take 2 months for the new APIs to come so that I can consume the services. And the technology, there is a producer and distributor model is coming. So it's a financial services producer, people are there. So I cannot say that actually like I'll not have a developer portal not available so that I can facilitate the financial services to kind of digital intermediaries assets. That cannot happen. And I cannot say that actually like data science capabilities cannot be like provided assets, because I don't have a technical capabilities on that. This cloud is going to provide you the foundation for that. This will facilitate you for accessing the latest kind of technologies as a commodity, and it's at a fraction of the cost which was there earlier, and access to the technologies at a faster pace, along with somebody like who is ahead of the game, or somebody like innovators, or somebody who is multi-billion, or the larger enterprises and everything. So that's something like the cloud is changing as such.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And gentlemen, before we wrap up, it's been a really insightful conversation. I'd love to get your final input on your digital strategy and where you see digital as sort of the approach to positioning yourself for the future as well, not only keeping in mind your requirements of the present day, but in terms of the future too. Shashank?
I mean, that's an interesting question and a quite challenging problem to solve, right? Because we don't really know what the future is, but we still need to provision for the future, right? And the best approach to do is sort of have abstractions, right? And when I look at any B2C or consumer, retail customer focused organization, there are 4 distinct stages that customer go through. The first stage is discovery, where customers find out what solutions, what product that you're offering, right? Now, what firms need to do is make sure that they have good digital presence through various channels so that customers would know about that. That's first stage. Second stage is acquisition, right? Of course, if customer has found out that there's a product out there market that you're selling or service that you're offering, how would you convince customer that we are the best to fulfill that, right? So we need to have a strong connect during that stage. We need to provide our sales folks with the right digital tools, right? We need to nudge customers through WhatsApp, through email, and maybe in future, new channels which might appear. And once customer has bought in the idea of taking service from you or product from you, how will you fulfill it? Right? Now, fulfillment could be very different, for different companies. For Amazon, selling mobile probably relatively easier. For NBFC, selling loan is very convoluted, and that also changes that what kind of loan product that you're selling. Education loan product is very complex because there are many aspects which are involved. Of course, once you have fulfilled it, you have to service, right? So these are the 4 stages. And that's how we have thought of our digital strategy. We have come up with a microservices architecture, which taking modular approach, so that as business evolves, we would be able to match the pace at which business wants to move, right? That's the fundamental approach that we have taken, because we don't know after 3 years, 5 years, how different flavors of the products that we will offer. So that's the approach we are taking.
Fantastic. Ashish?
So the way I would like to see here is overall as he mentioned, actually, like you don't know actually where the industry is going on. So you should be like agile enough to kind of go ahead with what is coming up, and ability to kind of adapt to the changes as such, because there are disruptions happening in the industry, whether the operating model or the customer acquisition model or the way you are doing the business as such. There is a disruption coming everywhere. And it's more of like it's not a financial services company like doing the business. It could be like a tech companies in the kind of doing the financial services as such. So how faster you are going to adapt into that, that's going to make the changes in the entire ecosystem. So for that, you need to be like get ready for that particular thing. So digitally savvy, and accordingly, like you should really look into the entire value system and value chain as such, and the way actually you do the business is also need to be relooked as such. So that's something like I need to add off here.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure to have you here talking about technology, digital adoption, and living in this hyper-connected world, and how to really be part of a promising future. Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Devina, for hosting us. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, on that note, it's a wrap for us here on Digital Pioneers, an ETStudios initiative powered by Tata Communications. But don't worry, we have a lot more in-depth and insightful conversations lined up for you on ETStudios. Watch this space for more.